No help.
Ryan, you good?
Geez, what's wrong with him?
I don't know, I guess I'll host this one. Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Colton Ogburn. So, we need to talk about that chilling and literally jaw-dropping ending of Smile 2. We need to figure out what was real and what was only happening in Sky's mind, and we'll also examine the terrifying series of events that have been set in motion for the third installment. We'll also break down the connections to the original film and how the Morris character will return to finally defeat the cosmic entity in a future installment. Or hey, maybe Morris wasn't even a real person. Maybe he was just another fabrication of the demon in Sky's mind. We are going to discuss all of that and more. Okay, so in the first film, we follow Rose, who becomes possessed by the entity following her traumatic encounter with a patient. A patient who was actually the victim in the original short film that inspired the first Smile movie. So the way this whole thing works is whoever the entity is currently attached to is driven mad over the span of roughly a week. The demon has not yet fully possessed the host, but has more so latched on to the person's mind like a parasite. The demon then feeds on that person's fear, which it causes by terrorizing them. Once the host is driven completely mad, the entity takes a deeper dive into the subject's consciousness, both literally and figuratively. While from the outside looking in, we just see the individual collapse and begin to choke, but from the view of the host, they are physically having their mouth ripped open and the demon is crawling into their body and taking the wheel as the predominant consciousness of the host.
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
The entity then makes the host end its own life in a brutal fashion in front of someone else, traumatizing the onlooker, which then allows for the demon to latch onto them and do it all over again. So, at the end of the original film, we see the demon enter Rose. Joel witnesses Rose brutally end her own life, allowing for the demon to now latch onto Joel and for the process to continue. In the opening of Smile 2, we see Joel desperate to transfer the Smile entity into another person without him having to die. Joel doesn't want to pass the demon on to an innocent person, and he wants to give his curse to someone more deserving. So he tracks down some bad dudes and attempts to brutally kill one of them in front of the other and transfer the demon, but they both end up dying. But it's Lucas who witnesses these traumatic events and becomes the demon's new host. And as for Joel... And guys, while I love horror movies like Smile, I'll admit they can make me a little anxious. And when I'm anxious, I have a bad habit of biting my lip. So I needed something to help me get rid of those bad oral fixation habits and replace them with a positive one. That's why I started using Fume. They're the sponsor of this video.
Hold on now, person. Is that a vape?
It's not a vape, it's not electronic, and it doesn't have pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals. Instead, it has these plant-based cores that are infused with natural flavors to create natural flavored air. You see, the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking. Fume contains no nicotine, it is not addictive, and it contains non-toxic flavors. Instead, it contains plant-based flavors like spearmint ice, cinnamon hearts, and my current favorite, crisp mint.
Oh, that's why your breath has been smelling so nice lately.
Yeah, with flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that does not use electronics, vapor, or combustion. But mostly I like that it still gives me something to reach for when I feel anxious. It even has movable parts for fidgeting that make an incredibly satisfying sound. Fume has served over 300,000 customers like myself, and you can be their next success story. For a limited time, use my code ScreenCrush to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for those who love to fidget, and it's reusable. So head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use the code ScreenCrush or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume topper when you order your Journey Pack today. Now, back to Smile. Okay, so the Lucas character, he buys drugs from these bad guys that Joel thought he was going to pass the demon onto. And that is how he is connected to the character of Skye, who used to be a drug addict but is now sober following her reckless actions under the influence, which caused a car crash that killed her boyfriend. Now, drug use is meant to parallel the smile parasite. Skye's use of hard drugs crippled her mind and made her do the things that weren't her, such as causing the wreck that killed her boyfriend. This is meant to resemble how things like alcohol or drugs that alter your mental state in a negative fashion can not only harm you, but also those around you. But let me be clear, this film wasn't directed by Darren the Lion, and it's not a film about the dangers of literal drugs like
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
I think this film is actually an allegory for how things like vanity and idolization in today's modern age are amplified by things like social media, as well as how one's social media presence isn't actually one's true self. Instead, it's this mask they put on for the world. The inner person is different from the outer person that they are presenting online. You could even say that they're putting on a smile that isn't real, just like how the smile demon causes the host to physically smile while simultaneously tormenting the person from within. Skye perfectly represents this theme of masking your true self by having her true self and the mask she wears as a pop star. Following her nearly fatal car wreck and her becoming sober, Skye now puts on this fake smile and portrays to the public that she's better when really she's not. Even before she's possessed by the smile demon, she was struggling with her sobriety and her guilt. Now, just like how the smile demon uses and exploits its host and literally forces you to put on a happy face, we saw Skye prior to her possession being used and exploited by her own mother and her record label. They've been pushing and pushing her to be able to go on tour despite her clearly not being in the headspace to do so. I mean, there's even a scene where she pulls a gun on a room full of people and this Darius dude literally says, "Skye, think about the tour." This again takes us back to the drug use imagery. Skye was a victim of literal drug use, while her mother and those around her were plagued with the drug of fame, fortune, and wanting to be seen and always have more. The same way Skye abused drugs, we're seeing her mother and those around her abuse her. Now, I want to explain just how the ending of the film drives home the deeper meaning that I think the filmmakers were trying to convey. But I also want to talk about how it lays the groundwork for future installments of the Smile franchise and the return of Morris in an eventual Smile 3.
Shut up and take my money!
And we still need to figure out what was real and what wasn't. But before we get into that, I did want to touch on a few lines I jotted down from the movie. I can see you're sad on the inside. You can never escape who you truly are on the inside, and you're not in control. These lines perfectly amplify the overarching theme of the literal control the demon has over its host from within, and how it would eventually trap the host within itself and take control. The smile demon uses manipulation and false realities to break its host, just like both literal drugs and metaphorical drugs like an addiction to social media can break the user. This creation of an online self that isn't your true self. And this was all brilliantly displayed with the film cinematography, giving us shots that make us as the audience feel like we are within Skye and seeing things through her eyes. Throughout the film, Skye is being taken on this journey that she really doesn't have control over, and by putting the camera within her own eyesight, it makes us as the audience member also feel like we're on this same adventure that we have no control over. Now, you see, social media, just like the smile demon, it has amplified the negativity one human being can be bombarded with, crushing them from the inside while simultaneously forcing that user to put on a happy face and hide their true self. And that, of course, all plays into the theme of what is real. One of my favorite scenes from the original Smile is when we learn that this lady was actually running late to her meeting and that this was actually the smile demon the whole time.
Rose? Are you there?
You're anticipating a twist like that the entire time you're watching Smile 2. I mean, the whole movie I was saying, oh, that's the demon, for various characters that interacted with Skye. And as the film went on, I guess I accepted that they wouldn't repeat that same gag from the first movie since we were all anticipating it. But by the time they did the exact same twist from the first movie, down to the phone call and everything with Gemma, they totally got me. They timed it out perfectly, and I didn't see it coming even though I had been anticipating it for most of the film. Okay, but the whole Gemma thing isn't the only thing that we seemingly learned wasn't real. Skye killing her mother and meeting up with Morris in an abandoned Pizza Hut was revealed to have not not really happened either. We can assume that Sky remained in that private health facility until she was released for her concert, just like her mom had planned. And just like the Smile entity wanted, so that it could spread itself to thousands of people, but more on that in a bit. Now, I do think that we can safely assume that the character of Morris was real. I don't think he was just another creation of the demon. Morris's brother was of course a victim of the entity, and Morris has been obsessed with tracking down the demon's hosts in hopes of destroying it by temporarily killing the host. I think that the introduction of this Morris character was totally a setup for the future of the saga. Every great horror villain has a Dr. Loomis for its Michael Myers, and I think that that's the role Morris will play. This brief introduction of Morris and his mission deepened the lore of the entity. There's a long history of victims of this demon that could stretch back centuries, maybe even thousands of years. And the end of the film sets things up for the demon to spread itself across a huge swath of people by traumatizing the crowd at the concert. Once again, echoing the theme of how things like social media can amplify and spread toxicity, hate, and cause self-loathing thoughts at a rate never seen before in human history. Morris has already accomplished an impressive feat of tracking the entity's movements, and now with it having spread to thousands of people and on track to spread to thousands more, likely through the use of social media, that's my theory for what the next film will be about, we are going to need someone like Morris with his expertise to track down every trace of the entity and stop it from spreading and taking over the entire planet. And hey, speaking of live performances, we're going on tour, but don't worry, it'll be demon free. I hope. Our first show is in Boston on November 14th, and we're coming to lots of other cities around the country. We are so excited to meet you all in person. We're going to play trivia, answer audience questions, and talk about the things that we can't talk about here on YouTube. Tickets are selling fast, so be sure to get yours now at the link in the description below. So guys, I am loving this franchise, and I love how this little indie has blossomed into a blockbuster horror phenomenon, while still maintaining that small movie feel. And I cannot wait to see what Smile 3 has to offer.
Hey, TV person, I'm getting a call from person. Hello?
Hey, Doug, I'm doing inventory downstairs. I'll be up in a bit.
Wait, if Ryan's on the phone, then who's that?